definitely get into all of that a little bit later. But today, since Sam did wake up very early to be here, and I want to be respectful of his time, let's go ahead and get into this week's discussion. So we're going to talk a little bit about privacy in Web3 and Findora. But before we do that, our friendly disclaimer of the week. Hope everybody's enjoying your coffee. Nothing said here is financial advice. This is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes as well. So we appreciate everybody being here. Wanted to give a quick shout out to my partners at Binance US. If you want to learn more, just check out my pinned tweet. But yeah, disclaimers out of the way. I'm ready to get started. And just maybe, I guess, my thoughts on this. Like, when we talk about crypto and blockchain, we always think like public ledger, everybody can see everything. And, my personal opinion is like, I do feel that some things need to be private, right? Like, and as an NFT DJ, some of us like create a burner wallet or make sure that it doesn't interact with other wallets. Like, there has to be a better option for us to keep things that we want private, I'm sorry. And yeah, and I think maybe we could start a little bit about that. Like, Sam, and maybe you want to get into that. Like, what is really Web3 privacy, and how is that going to play a role, do you think, like, going forward? Like, why do we need it? Why do we need it?
Why do we need it? That's a good question. Well, first off, I do want to say that nothing that I say is financial advice nor legal advice. So I wanted to get my own disclaimers out of the way here.
Definitely
Or
not
coffee advice. Oh, come on. I can have good coffee. Okay. But the takeaway is, why do we need privacy, especially in a situation of blockchain where transparency and understanding what's happening under the hood is such a viable and valuable part about why it is we're doing what we're doing. And the answer to that I have is, hey, we all love taking showers, but we don't necessarily want to take a shower in the middle of the street, right? There are some things that we do that we would prefer to have a little bit of privacy about. And I think that the narrative around blockchain actually goes beyond this idea of transparency. I think it actually goes deeper to the idea of control and ownership and responsibility. And the fact that, somebody like Jess can say, I get to decide what NFTs I purchase. I get to decide what I do with the money that I've made. And people cannot limit, other individuals, other institutions cannot limit what I do or do things that I don't agree with, right? And because we're talking about the digital usage of privacy, let's talk about the digital assets around privacy. And the blockchain is the thing that provides you the ability to do what you want with your digital assets because you own them. You can share them. You can share your information with the people and the entities and the businesses that you want to. And that's how you create relationships, right? And so privacy really is the ability to create the relationships with the individuals and the entities that you choose to create relationships with. So there you go. I paused. Now, I may have wandered a little bit in that explanation because my coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Because I'm drinking Dunkin', which is the strongest coffee on the planet.
Yeah, it's so watered down, and I shouldn't be talking because I completely forgot to ask you to introduce yourself, Sam. Like, I know you, so I'm like, hey, what's going on? The coffee has not kicked in. But yeah, I'm sorry, Sam.
Isn't it like noon where you are, Jess? Isn't that what's happening? How are you still exhausted? So yeah, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Sam Harrison. Great to meet you guys. I've been a follower of the whole crypto and coffee thing for a while. And so I'm so excited to be able to be here. My role is I am the CEO of Discreet Labs. Discreet Labs is the primary software development organization responsible for the Findora blockchain. So of course we have a few other products that we do as well, but Findora blockchain is the primary one, the number one. And we really, I mean, it's one of the things we absolutely love to work on. So that's me.
Thank you, Sam, and I apologize for that. But yeah, I think that's a great point. Like the part of not just only it being private, but for you to be able to control that information as well. So what is Findora helping to solve issues in this area? So it looks like, you're using smart contracts with zero knowledge technology. Like, explain it to me like I'm five. Like everybody says, what does this all mean?
No. Not only do I need more coffee, I think I need like some cocaine to be able to explain zero knowledge proofs at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like that's just going to be a rough road. Um, okay, so what does Findora do? So right now, whenever we talk about privacy, especially with blockchain, normally what we're trying to do is we're trying to have the privacy of our transactions. I have an asset that I'm going to send from this wallet to that wallet, and I'm going to send, X number of these assets, right? 5 Bitcoin or whatever the case is. And the way that we've done privacy before in blockchain technology is through basically obfuscation. We're going to dump a whole lot of these transactions into a mixer or a tumbler, and then they're going to pop out the other side. And no one's going to be able to figure out where they came from. This is, the tornado cache solution. Now, we've also had zero knowledge proofs for a while, but they've been too expensive. And I'm putting the expensive in air quotes because they've required computational power that's just been a little bit too much. And so you have, implementations like Zcash where, you can possibly do a private transaction, but because it's more expensive, you end up with 80 to 90% of the transaction in public to public rather than private to private, because each time you add a private, it requires more gas. So what we do is, rather than trying to hide the transaction through obfuscation, we mask the wallet address, we mask the asset type, and we mask the asset amount through usage of zero knowledge proofs, but in a way that allows you to unmask it to the people you want and to the entities you want and at the time and time frame you want, so that you actually now have control over the data you're sharing. So that's how we do it. So we're combining privacy with the ability to audit and be compliant with regulations and, accounting and sharing information that you want to share.
I think that's a great way to break it down for us that might not know what it is. Because I definitely feel like everybody wants some type of privacy. Nobody otherwise, like, just put a screenshot of your bank account. Like, nobody would want to do that, right? But aside from, like, oh, well, before I move on, does anybody have any questions for Sam or any comments before we move on to the next topic?
Yep.
Well, I do want to ask Jess, and I want to ask, everyone else. You just mentioned the fact that, no one wants to share their bank account. I was just wondering, I know a couple of people here on this call or on this spaces. Can you share your bank account? Because I would love that. Just throw up like your wallet address, just tweet it out loud to everyone in the universe. And I just want to go and see what, Jimbo or EasyNode or I think Strong Minds Hold is here. I just want to figure out, what their material worth is, because I think that'd be
I'll
great.
share mine. I have $0 on every of my accounts, so please send money my way. I'm poor. Please help me. So I think that was interesting what you said, that Findora is a blockchain, right? But it sounds like it can be other things as well. So you're not just building a blockchain; you're also building, I guess, privacy services on top of existing blockchain. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to look at it is blockchains. For me, this is, I have two analogies that help me understand what blockchains do. I look at blockchains as a platform. And so in many ways, it's like the Windows operating system, published by Microsoft. So Findora is your Windows operating system, and Discreet Labs is your Microsoft. And so my goal is to show, number one, what the platform is capable of and making sure the platform is more and more powerful. But also, just like Microsoft may release stuff like Word and, Excel and PowerPoint, we release, certain usages of the technology to show what it's capable of. Findora is 100% a open platform, but sometimes, just like with Microsoft Word, there is a particular use case that we want to highlight and say this is the productivity, right? Another way to look at it is saying, okay, you know, a blockchain is a city, and Discreet Labs would be the city council of the blockchain. And so we are responsible for making sure we have good infrastructure that would allow businesses and you know communities to move in and utilize this city to the best of their abilities. Did I answer your question there,
Yeah,
Dal?
yeah, it,
I may
it,
have
it
wandered a
did.
little.
Because when you mentioned Zk, I automatically thought, oh, it's got to be a roll up, right? But when you mentioned that it's on blockchain, I thought, oh, maybe you guys are doing both. So my understanding is that you have that maybe two different products. You have the one blockchain where
Yeah,
by default everything is private. And then potentially, if you're on a EVM compatible blockchain, you guys can add like this privacy layer that would make sense for the average user who doesn't, to your point, like want to share the bank account information. Doesn't make sense the way we using currently blockchain. So it makes sense that way.
yeah, no, Dal, you're 100% correct. The one thing I would add on that is Findora is a little bit unique. Well, not fully unique, but we are a dual chain architecture. So one of our chains is EVM compatible. And the thing is about EVM compatible chains and the Ethereum virtual machine is it actually doesn't allow for privacy in the way it's designed. So we have something called the UTXO chain that has the ability to do some of these privacy transactions. And then behind the scenes, you know, the users don't have to worry about this because they just open their wallet and they say, you know, mask address, mask asset type, mask the amount in their wallet. And so then this all happens in the background. But we have something that bridges it from the Ethereum chain to the UTXO chain to be able to mask it and then unmasks it or does the transaction, sending it back to the EVM chain and back to whatever wallet we need to do. And again, you know, 7 a.m. So this is a little complicated, and I don't have a whiteboard to describe it, but that's how that works.
Great question. And thank you, Sam, for clarifying that. Nico, go ahead, and then Jesus.
So, Sam, can I tell you what I'm doing, and you tell me
No,
if
wait,
it's
wait. Do you
capable?
have a question, Sam, Nico?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, because the way he's using it, the way he's talking about it, I want to see if I'm capable of utilizing it. That's the thing. That's why I want to, and it's kind of hard to explain what I'm doing because, all right. So I hop
Wait,
around
wait.
blockchains.
It maybe we want. Maybe I don't know if you want to. If you, I don't want to take it too far off topic, but if you want to just ask a general, if it's something specific, maybe let's take it to the DMs.
Okay, so I hop around blockchains, like just because I want to save money on fees, and I also don't want people to know where I end up. So, like, I use XLM. Like, I do all kinds of transactions. I go from I buy XLM, I move it to another exchange, I convert it to whatever I want to convert it after. It would be a blockchain type thing because I want to pay a fee. So it would be something like BNB, Matic, or Ethereum. And then I send it off to another exchange. Ethereum really wasn't an option for me. The problem with me was I live in New York and I couldn't buy Matic and I couldn't buy BNB at some point. So, and even the Matic I was buying, it was an ERC20, and I needed the Polygon version. So like, and I know already that people can still like snoop around if they know some of my wallet addresses, especially now that people know I use XLM. But it doesn't really matter. The point that I'm trying to say is, would this be able to help me mask my transactions after the XLM?
100%. As long so right now the status of the stuff that has been released is that you can do Findora to Findora transactions in the Findora wallet masked, right? What is happening as we roll out this technology further and further this year specifically is that you'll be able to do more of these mass transactions in a better way and be able to provide this view key to your accountant. So the quick answer, Nico, to your question is yes, this technology will massively help you accomplish, you know, the honestly, it gives you the authority to reveal the information that you want to about yourself to other people. I'm not going to talk about hiding it or staying, you know, I don't know, compliant or whatever. Basically, it says that you, Nico, have the authority to choose who you're going to share the relationship with.
I think that whole concept of privacy versus secrecy is like good to distinguish, right? Like, I'm not trying to hide anything. I just want certain things to be private. But yeah, go ahead, Jesus. Great point. Great point. Great question.
Sam, I'm curious if you've read Vitalik's recent paper in Complete Guide to Stealth Addresses, because in that paper he outlines ways to create privacy transactions using the EVM.
I have missed that one. Normally, you know, the most recent, as you can imagine, and as we talked about, I think a little bit earlier, the crypto industry moves super, super quickly. And so I'm not able to keep 100% up to speed with the most recent papers. That being said, I have some incredibly talented people on staff here at Discreet Labs who I imagine later today I will get a text message in Slack saying, "Hey, Sam, I totally did read this paper that you talked about this morning, and we've implemented X, Y, and Z about what Vitalik talked about." So I just haven't seen it yet come across, you know, my radar. So sorry about that, Jesus.
No worries. Hey, it's exciting to see that you have both the EVM chain and the other one. Because, you know, let's be real, no matter what happens in this world, we're always going to see multiple blockchains. But it's nice to have flexibility. You know, having the ability to be EVM compatible will make it obviously so it's easier for developers who have native ecosystems in Ethereum to just copy and paste whatever they have over into your ecosystem. And eventually, when we have more user-friendly user interfaces, and you know all these blockchains can kind of be integrated, or users can just switch between them at their own will or discretion, it'll be super easy to use similar applications through your chain without really sacrificing on the user experience.
And I 100% agree with that. In fact, it's one of the first lessons I learned when I came into the crypto space. My first full-time job was with Tezos, right as Tezos launched. And Tezos, as wonderful as that technology is, and all of the various different benefits that they have now, at the very early days when we first launched Mainnet, it was written in Michelson. The smart contracts were written in Michelson, which nobody knew how to code in, right? And so we had to do the really, really hard uplift to train developers to code in a new language, which also, by the way, was a functional programming language, not an object-oriented language. And so it made it even another level difficult to train the new developers. And so I 100% experienced this idea of an ecosystem that you'd have to build even from the very, very bottom up. Whereas now, using the EVM chain, we can profit from all of the work that Vitalik has done and that the entire Ethereum community has done. We can thank them. We can say, hey, come join us and use, you know, the extra new assets that we have. But I'm also a huge believer in the multi-chain thesis. I really don't believe that one chain is going to rule them all. We'll have a variety of different chains. For example, I think Tezos is a great blockchain to be able to use for stuff like really, really, really high-end finance or automotive or aerospace, because it's designed in functional programming languages, which is a requirement for those industries. And so I think that specialization will happen more and more as the blockchain, you know, ecosystem evolves.
Those are great points. I did have like a comment or a thought maybe. So, I mean, aside from, you know, being able to mask certain financial transactions, what type of applications or what is like another use case that you would see where privacy would be beneficial to make to like the consumers?
Oh, yeah. That's an excellent question, Jess, because the offset, it's just like, hey, I want to be secret, right? I want, you know, I want to hide that I'm sending money from this place to this place. But that's only one of what I would call the four main verticals in the blockchain space, is this whole DeFi or finance side. Because we also have things like games, and we have things like NFTs, and we have things like DAOs. So the most obvious and simple use case, the one right out of the gate, is a private payroll for a DAO. Right now, you know, last year when we saw all of the big explosion of DAOs, one of the most interesting things that I saw from where I was sitting is how much debate and friction would end up happening after people would get compensated for the work they did for the DAO, where some people are like, oh, that's way too much. And other people are like, oh, that's so not enough. We should definitely pay you more, because everybody saw that information. And with a private payroll where a DAO could mask the wallet addresses, the asset amount, and the transaction amount, you have that ability. And I'm not saying you have to use it. I'm not even saying you should use it. But the answer is you have the ability. So that's one area you can use it in DAOs. Now, another area that I really like, especially for this crowd, is the NFT use case. So NFTs in general, you know, a lot of times we talk about them as artwork, as JPEGs for those who are saying, oh, NFTs suck. But they're not that, right? NFTs are intellectual property. I view them as liquid intellectual property because they're easy to buy and sell and trade. And what we're buying and selling and trade with our Bored Apes or whatever, you know, NFT we use is the copyright associated with the image. Now, we can use that copyright as it is, but imagine moving NFTs onto other forms of intellectual property. Imagine using an NFT to represent a license for a patent or a software license. So imagine I'm an institution that I need to do a software as a service license for my computer security for my company. I don't want people knowing that. I don't want people to know what is the, you know, the security software that I use, because that's a security vulnerability. And so if I license it through a masked NFT, suddenly that's much more, you know, I can consume it as an industry, as an institution more than before. So those are two good use cases that I see coming down the pike. There are, of course, many, many others. And to be honest, this is one of the reasons why I love open source software, is I'm not the smartest person in the room. And in fact, if I am, I'm in the wrong room. And I really, really want to see what other people can do with this technology.
I wanted to comment that those are great examples on the first example. Like, I think about it, you know, I still have a Web2 job. I can't imagine the turmoil if my employer put out everybody's salary and everybody knew what they were making. Like, there would definitely be friction. So I totally get that DAO example of, you know, wanting to choose to keep it private. So that's a great example. Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say, there is an upside for everyone knowing what everybody else makes, right? You can allow for actually a more robust worker unionized salary negotiation when you're allowed to talk about what everybody else makes. But the point is it's an option, right? Like you have to have the option to keep it secret or reveal it. It doesn't have to be open by default, and it doesn't have to be closed by default. And that's what I'm trying to get at. That's what I'm trying to say. Like this idea of privacy versus transparency goes deeper. It's more about who has the authority to control it. Is it the individual users, or is it some institutional third party?
And then is my statement true? Like, you could possibly build DApps around it to authorize like certain groups of people to view that data and like choose who you want to share it with?
That's definitely what's on the roadmap. I mean, there, of course, the technology needs to be developed a little bit more to add certain features and the user interface to basically timestamp something. So it's like, okay, this is a piece of private information that I'm going to share with, you know, Jess and Tammy and Dow, and I'm going to share it with them for, you know, 15 minutes or 5 weeks or forever. It's just, you know, being able to do a composable privacy is exactly where we're at with the technology.
Wait, real quick. That sounds like you're also talking about like a decentralized ID, right? Where you would have your data and you can provide attestation, right? Like for KYC or things like that. Hey, I'm over a certain age, but I don't need to reveal exactly what age I am. I just have to reveal that I'm over 21. Is that something that you guys are working on as well?
Yes, indeed. And because that is a very, very clear use case for something like zero knowledge proofs in general, and this particular solution, right? Being able to have attestations associated with, for example, something like an ENS, right? I'm over 21, or I have over 145 IQ, or, you know, I scored a 1600 on my SATs. Are they still based out of 1600? I'm way too old.
Are you talking about the White House? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the SA, not 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh.
The SATs.
Yo, I'll give you the history, Sam. They went from 1600 to 2400, then back to 1600.
What? What did they do to 2400?
they added an essay, and then when the year I took the SAT, I was so fucking lucky. It was the first year they dropped the essay again. I was so happy.
Guys,
That's how long it's been. I don't even know what the SAT scores are supposed to
you're this
be.
old if you remember
In
Zach Morris
Pennsylvania
getting a
Avenue?
1500 on his SATs.
It used to be point
And now they take them online because COVID.
for like
So
liberal arts
it's a
stuff.
joke.
And
All
then
right.
I think you got 200 points if you got your name correct. Like a lot of people misspelled their name and they missed the 200 points. I don't know if anybody knew that or not.
Really quick, Death, I know you had sent me 2 questions, which it looks like Sam answered, but did you have anything else to add or chime in? Great questions, by the way. He asked about the DIDs and about was it open source, and you talked about both of those.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it's Dowie. I guess you're in my head there, man. But thank you, of course, for always having me up. And I guess I'll ask one question relative to the digital ID, because you said you guys are working on it. Do you have like an institution you're partnering with, and in the sense of where the information may be stored? Do you guys plan on doing it, or hiring a third party security expert to store the information?
That's a good question. The exciting thing for me in my career, hang on, can you guys still hear me? I hit a button and I'm not sure if I'm still on. Okay, I'm getting thumbs up. I wanted to make sure I wasn't rugged. Okay, so the answer to that thing is the great thing about Findora, where we are right now, is we're really, really early on as far as the robustness of our business development and partnership programs and the products that we've actually built and released. I may be getting ahead of myself, so this is a little bit of early alpha for you guys, but there is a Findora naming service, so like an ENS, but for Findora, that is almost ready for being launched on the program, on the platform. And so that is the first step in getting to a DID, right? Is getting this FNS out there. Now, once we get there, the question is how do we want to move forward with the rest of the DID stuff? Because if we architect it correctly, we won't be partnering with somebody like Equifax or Experian or TransUnion, right? First off, they have a history of being breached anyway. So, and that's a massive institution of a third party that we don't necessarily want to trust with our data. And the right way to create that architecture is the fact that you, the individual, are the one who can associate your data with your information. Now, how that linkage is made, we of course will use ZK proofs throughout the process. So it's like, are you over 21? Yes. Well, how old are you? Doesn't matter. But the stewardship of the actual information, the proper way to architect that is to keep that in the hands of the individual, and that's going to be our goal. So we're not at the partnership phase yet, but any partners that we do have, that will be a requirement.
Great question. Thank you, Death, for that. Johnny, we'll go over to you and then we'll keep it going. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you. Hey, Sam. So I was actually thinking about this issue earlier because I'm thinking about, do I want to start a law firm in the Web3 space? And you have a fiduciary duty to not tell people who your clients are unless they want to be told, and taking obviously payments over Web3 kind of can blow that up very quickly. Have you thought about like professions, even like the medical field and the legal field, where confidentiality is the legal requirement, and like what has your Ben touch on that space?
So that's the reason why I'm so excited about where we are right now as a blockchain ecosystem overall. Is Findora and Discreet Labs, we're not the only one working on this project, working on the specific thing about privacy. But the privacy and the auditability, and that is going to be absolutely necessary for institutional adoption of blockchain technology. And so when somebody gets that, that'll be great. And honestly, given the speed of Polygon's massive business development partnerships with massive institutions, they may get there first, but that's okay. It's a multi-chain future. But the point I'm trying to make is, yes, we have thought about it. Yes, I think it's entirely important and required. And the third point about this is, for me personally, and most of the team here at Discreet Labs, we're in the game for adoption of blockchain technology. And because of that, we are actually very collaborative and not necessarily competitive to make sure that that this technology gets adopted. So Johnny, the long and short is, yes, it's required. Hopefully you'll use Findora and Discreet Labs products to do it. But as long as somebody is using blockchain for this purpose, that's what makes me happy.
That is a really great perspective. Like, I never thought about that. Like, from a lawyer's perspective, you do have to keep that information confidential. So, great point, Johnny. And good luck with your upcoming bar exam. We're all rooting for you here.
Johnny, you're taking the bar exam? I hate that test so
Let's
much.
not,
It's
let's
worse than
not
the
talk.
SAT.
Let's stop talking about standardized tests, for God's sake.
But it's 7:30 in the morning now. It's time to turn on the sexy talk about standardized tests.
ChatGPT. But yeah, those are all great points. But yeah, so we've talked a little bit about privacy and what Findora do. So what Findora is? What is Findora? What's new at Findora? I know you guys just recently released your foundation grant program. You want to talk maybe a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can hit on a couple of notes because, grant programs in general are a dime a dozen out there. Ours specifically, we have $100 million that is dedicated. That doesn't mean that we're going to run out and try and spend the $100 million today. But we are going to be very responsible and have a very good stewardship over this fund. And so it's going to be more difficult than some chains to be able to get a grant from Findora, which I think is fine. It just shows that we are, we're here to help, but we're not just going to throw around money. Because the other thing is true. Grant programs are not a venture capital firm. They're not supposed to be your bank of last resort or a first resort, right? They're just supposed to help a little bit, make it a little bit easier to deploy something onto a new chain. So think about it that way. Now, we go into a lot more robust detail on the website, findora.org/grants, that talk about our philosophy around what the grants are supposed to be, what we are looking for, and what we're not looking for. There are a lot of cool projects out there, and we may not be ready for them yet. Maybe later, but right now we may not be ready for them. And so you can take a look at findora.org/grants. There's a place where you can apply. We get back to everybody within a week, and then basically starts this process of evaluating, and we announce the grant recipients once a quarter. So the first set of grant recipients will be announced next month.
Thanks.
Yeah, anyone have any specific questions on the grant program?
And I did pin it to the top in case anybody wants to check it out, if anybody's building in the space and interested in some of the technology we just talked about.
Nico, you going to apply for it?
He might not be there.
No, sorry. I wasn't. I got a phone call in the middle of this. Sorry about that. I don't even know what you're talking about.
No worries,
No
pal.
problem. No problem. But yeah, that's great to see that, a way to bring in new protocols and new products to the ecosystem. And, I do agree with you. I do think, protocols need to be more thorough with their grant programs. We saw what happened, the last bull run. And we want these projects to be sustainable and to actually contribute to the ecosystem. So I totally agree with that. Go ahead, Dow.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. I think there's a lot of topics that we don't talk enough in crypto. One is security, and the other one is privacy, right? That's just as you were saying, right? Sometimes we conflate secrecy with privacy, but I had to look it up, right, on Wikipedia. And we have a right to privacy as part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this happened last year, right, where the Tenor Cash developer got arrested for simply developing and pushing code that's open source. So in that context, Sam, like, what's your take on, the regulatory landscape? Do you think there's going to be some issues with just the way technology works, that you're enabling privacy for regular people? Or do you think there's a clear difference between what you guys are working on and what Tornado Cash and other mixers are working on?
So first, of course, I have to preface this by saying nothing that I say is legal advice. And second, I need to say regulators are going to regulate, right? And sometimes we're not going to necessarily know beforehand what's going to happen. Like I'm very, to be honest, I'm quite disappointed with what happened with Kraken earlier this week and the SEC. I really disagree with how they're approaching this. In fact, I know that there are people at the SEC that also disagree with it. But the point is regulators are going to regulate, right? Now, the thing about our technology that I think is a very, very high probability of being fine is it allows for auditability, which is the number one thing that regulators are going to look for when it comes to privacy. They just want to know that you're not, shipping money to the whatever the bad political causes of the day. And I say that in a specific way because it's not just about money laundering for terrorism or drugs or whatever, because, and this is going to be controversial, so hopefully everyone is okay with me being a little bit controversial. During the pandemic up in Canada, this is not in Soviet Russia, but this is in Canada during the pandemic, there are a group of truck drivers who disagreed with their government's approach to vaccines. And the government's response was turning off access to their banks, right? So that is not okay. That is not okay. And we don't want that to happen. But we want you to be able to protest things that are legitimate, that you feel like you have the legitimate right to protest and not have that worry. I'm not funneling money into a terrorist organization just because I'm supporting a movement that are talking about their own human rights, right? But this ability to have this view key, this ability to have this auditability, that right there is so incredibly important for the regulators that I think will be okay. It allows us privacy globally, but for a specific situation, we're able to, unmask that.
And I love that you are differentiating between privacy and secrecy, because the majority of my career was as a banker, and privacy was huge. So I will tell you this though too, when it comes to secrecy, people come up in the banking, in the bank or in the credit union, acting a fool, doing weird stuff. I hope y'all know. I mean, they've got reports that they even fill out on that. So the bank doesn't even like people being secretive about things either. SAR reports, suspicious activity reports are filled out all the time. So privacy for me, even coming into this space, was huge because that was, 20 plus years of what I did. And to know things were on blockchain and to learn all of this, like I love that. But I do think that there is a level of privacy that people want to maintain. Secrecy, no, but privacy, yes. So even in the banking world, it's the same way.
And one thing, and Tammy, I 100%, sorry, Jess, but Tammy, one thing I just want to highlight about what you just said is this is a fight that we've been going on for a super, super long time. And I've actually 100% in law school, I issued this thesis to my study group, and I think it's still 100% accurate. The biggest and most important fight for our generation is going to be around reclaiming our privacy, reclaiming the expectation of privacy. And Johnny, for you probably understand this penumbra of rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights about how the right to privacy came about in the States. The problem is most people don't care about it. Most people are like, hey, no, everything's on Facebook, everything's on Instagram. We don't care. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm trying really, really hard to make the hashtag. I can't believe I'm trying to make a hashtag work, but hashtag expect privacy. That is something that is really important to me because it is a cultural phenomenon that we need to have, that everybody should expect their service providers and their products that they use to enshrine their privacy and give them the control over their privacy. I could get up on a soapbox and talk longer and longer about why that's important, that it boils down to our relationships and what it means to be an autonomous human being, but maybe a little bit too early for that, although the coffee is kicking in, so that's good.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I like that term, auditable privacy. So it's still private, but can still be audited. So yeah, great points, great points. And then another thing that I saw as far as like things that have been happening in the Findora ecosystem, you guys just recently integrated band protocol. So it's the first Oracle integration. So how is this going to benefit people that might want to build on Findora, or how's this going to benefit the ecosystem?
So in general, anybody that builds anything that has to do with the real life needs an Oracle of some sort, right? This is the classic Oracle problem. Chainlink is probably the most common provider of a solution here. Chainlink, of course, is so popular that regardless of how much you're willing to pay them, they are 9 months to 18 months out in their integration right now. But Band does a phenomenal job. In fact, they have certain assets that can help above and beyond what Chainlink was able to provide. But the real answer is this will give us price feeds for DeFi. This will give us, for those of you who are, it's legal to be able to put sports betting and stuff like that. You're able to use oracles to get results back from, say, ESPN on your sports betting. So this is a very, very important piece.
Great stuff. I'll get to the hands in a minute. I want to make sure that I want to be respectful of Sam's time. So we're going to make it quick. Who had their hands first? Nico, go ahead.
So yeah, no, it was on the topic of privacy before, and I was like, I just wanted to throw in there, like, the more expensive your PFP is, the more rugs come your way. Like, you can let Crypto Jesus answer that question. Like, I'm sure people come up to you and like, I got the next best thing, because people think you got money to just throw around everywhere. Am I wrong here, Crypto Jesus?
Every day.
It's like the more expensive your PFP, the more rugs come your way, and you just know what not to buy. In some ways, it's a good thing, and in some ways, it's like, I don't know, man.
Good points. Yeah, everybody here it's good that everybody is interested about privacy. And I guess that something else that I saw you guys have coming out. So you're starting a new podcast focused on privacy. Where do you see that going? Like, what is your thoughts behind putting this together?
Well, first off, it's just an excuse for me to be able to talk. I don't know if you guys have heard, but I just tend to ramble and talk. I like my voice. It's great. So it's an excuse for everyone, for me to be able to talk, and then everyone listen to me. So it's called Proof of Privacy. It's launching next week. And the concept here around privacy is, this is actually a very, very complicated word. Most of the time when we talk about privacy in the cybersecurity sense, we're actually talking about data protection, not necessarily privacy. It's making sure that Equifax doesn't get hacked a second time, right? It is basically what we talk about. But this is a platform to be able to discuss with everybody, what does this mean to you? Why is privacy important to you? When you think about privacy, what does it mean? What are you doing, and what are you doing in your business and your work that highlights this and helps this out? So I banked several episodes, so I'm very excited to start releasing them. Hopefully they're all still topical, because some of them I was recording back in November and December. But these are people like from Unstoppable Domains, talking about decentralized identity and reputation. People from like Undead Blocks, talking about games and about how privacy and surprise works in a gaming setting. And so there'll be a lot of very interesting conversations that happen on the Proof of Privacy podcast, really around this whole concept. So that's really where that podcast is going.
Yeah, great. And there's some bright minds here. So if anybody's interested in teaming up with Sam, definitely make sure to reach out to him or the Findora team. And then since we're on that topic of, podcasting and what's going on, ETH Denver is the next big thing. Is any of my speakers going to be at ETH Denver? Jesus, are you going to be there?
Yes, I will. I'm going to be there for 11 days.
Oh, wow. Dow, are you going?
Too cold for me. I went there a couple of years ago. I froze. Coming from Colombia, it was too cold for me.
You're definitely not the ETH maxi I thought you were. You slept through the ETH merge, not going to ETH Denver. Like, what is going on?
I tried. It's 70 degrees all year round in Colombia. Wherever I go that's super cold, I can barely stay for 2 days. I was freezing there. but it was cool. It was a really cool event. Anybody who can should definitely attend Eve Denver. A lot of good developers, hackers, and cool talks as well.
Sam, I would definitely suggest if you don't know Jesus, maybe linking up with Jesus. But yeah, let us. What do you guys have going on at East Denver? I know you guys are one of the sponsors over there.
If I don't know Jesus, you recommend that I hook up with Jesus? Do you have a book that you're trying to
Jesus in
give
your life.
me? Like, are you worried about my eternal soul, Jess? I mean, come on. Um, Jesus, I don't think we've met personally. I may have seen you on these talks before and everything. So I would love to meet up with you. I'll be there starting, I believe, on the 28th. So I'm not going to be there from the very beginning of the Biddle Week. But I'll be there. There's the Universal Privacy Alliance has a seminar that I'm attending, and the ZK Day Denver is a kind of a day-long zero knowledge proof event that I'm attending as well. And then, of course, we have a great booth highlighting a couple of different members of our ecosystem during the main event, which is really exciting. So you guys can come and meet us there. There are a handful of side events and parties that we'll be attending. But one of the things that I've noticed in prior years is while they can be incredibly cool, they can also be incredibly distracting. So I've been trying to limit the side events and parties that Findora, sponsors, just because of the fact that I would love to have people spend the time having conversations, going and eating, enjoying the time, and not necessarily getting, stupid drunk while listening to a DJ. Although that can be really fun too.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, 11 days. I know Jesus is going to be there for 11 days, so I can't imagine 11 days of partying. But Jesus, I'll let you. You have your hand up. Go ahead.
No,
Sounds like
Jess, please. I will have 11 days of straight partying, 2 to 3 hours of sleep at night tops. The conference lifestyle with these like nerd degenerates is fucking insane. It's like the one time a year they get to go off and they go off hard. It's gonna be a good time. I'm excited. I'm going to a few of the Polygon events, and we hang around with a bunch of the guys there. The team from Opchain Labs. I'm sure we'll link up with the creators of Arbitrum. And I'm excited to see what Polygon ZK puts out, especially, the former CEO of Hermes is obviously now Polygon ZK, and everything he puts out is very interesting. So I'm excited to see, especially someone do a Validium. Right now, it's really just roll-ups.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited overall.
Well, it sounds a little bit to me like Jesus needs Jesus. I've been waiting for that joke for like 5 minutes.
You definitely need your own podcast. I'll definitely listen to it.
Thanks, Dow. Appreciate it, man. Proof of Privacy podcast. It's already listed on Spotify, so you can go and take a look. And then we're going to be dropping the first episode next week, which is basically going to be me talking a lot more about privacy and my opinion on it. And then we're launching into the interviews on a weekly basis the following week.
Sounds awesome. Johnny and then David. What's up, Johnny?
Yeah, I love that you're going to kind of be the tip of the spear for this new advocacy for privacy. I think it's something that's going away in the United States, where really that's the foundation of our country is built on. Especially because I feel like people they would give up their privacy to be able to know what is going on in your world, because everyone's just so nosy in your business. So I love that, but I also think that you should lean into partnering with like lenders who use collateral. You allow your crypto to be used as collateral in short money cash fiat loans as a way to create privacy in the lending industry and a bridge to the real world, especially because that has historically been a place where discrimination is just rampant. And if you have privacy on one end, you can't discriminate. Like, you don't know who that person is. I see that as being an appeal that will kind of bridge the political world. I don't know if you put any thought into that, but privacy in housing is really, really important, required by government, and perhaps the space for you.
I 100% agree with you, Johnny. I have thought about this a little bit. I also think about kind of the stepping stones to get from here to there. And we're still early days. Like, we still have a lot of work to do on the foundational work, but the destination of this ability to expect privacy is if everybody thinks it's okay to hide your race or your gender or your sexual orientation, right? If everybody sees that, and that's the expectation for everybody across the board, then that means discrimination, it doesn't necessarily go away, but you can get around it in a lot of ways. And I want to be super, super careful about how I talk about this, because it's a very, very hot button topic. And I don't want to minimize anybody's experience. As you can see from my PFP, I'm a white male, so maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this at all. But the takeaway is, this technology, let me rephrase this just slightly. As a human species, the apocalypse has almost always been tomorrow, right? We've always had the sky falling. But one of our abilities historically has been able to create tools and create technology that has been able to postpone the apocalypse. I see a lot of bad things happening right now and historically in the last several years and in the future around invasions of privacy. But I don't want to look at this as a negative. I want to look at it as a positive, saying, hey, we've built the technology now that we can avoid this particular apocalypse. And that's why I actually love working on the Findora project and at Discreet Labs, is because that is the future that I'm excited about. We have built this technology that can avoid the apocalypse of the invasion of privacy.
Well said. Great perspective. David, welcome. Good morning.
Hey Jess, hey Tammy. Yeah, Sam, I love what you guys are doing. This is awesome. I want to back up Tammy on that. I work at a large bank. I think Tammy had a little more worked with customers more directly, but we have a term called KYC, know your customer, and it's to really understand and keep their information private, but understand like when something's going awry. Then you report it, so that if someone came in and is trying to break into someone's account or use it for terrorism, then you're reporting it. But if they're doing whatever they want with their money and it's not illegal, you're staying out of their business. But KYC is, you want to know who your customers are and have that relationship.
So I would like to push back on this just a little. I know regulations and I know KYC is super vitally important, and I'm actually supportive of it. But there is a piece here about where the control lies for this information. Because the way that you described it, I reveal all of my personal information to a bank, and then the bank has to protect that. And that's what we've always looked at as data privacy historically. I think that the technology is here. It just needs to be adopted. That rather than doing that, the bank can issue a challenge to my DID that says, hey, take a look at X, Y, and Z. Is this person on any watch lists? Is this, wallet, is this individual on any of the things that we can say you should not have a bank account? And then the zero knowledge proof just comes back with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And so the bank doesn't have any private information about me, but knows that I'm not sponsoring terrorism, right? And I'm not on any watch lists. Because that way, then I don't have to rely on the bank to protect my information. So I know KYC is super important, and I'm very supportive of it. I would like it to be slightly modified so that I personally am in control of my personally identifiable information, and I don't have to rely on somebody else to protect it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, that's an excellent, going down that route is definitely the way to go for the future. I really agree with you there, 100%.
And we did that as well, David. You're right. I had to train my people, and I managed several branch locations, and we did have something like that where we had to check those. We had to check the list, the OFAC list, and make sure that there wasn't anybody, if there were hawk alerts or other things that we had to look for, to make sure that they weren't on any watch lists. But all those things are done behind the scenes, and that those things do absolutely happen.
Yeah, those are all great points. But yeah, I know we're coming up to the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of your time, but I did see you guys release the roadmap for this year. So maybe tell us like what you're excited for that's coming out soon.
Well, first off, the thing that I'm really proud about for the team, and this actually, credit goes to the prior CEO, Warren Paul Anderson, because Q1, we're about halfway through Q1 right now, and of the 7, 8 things that are on the list of the roadmap that need to be released in Q1, about half or more than half of them are already done, right, and been released. So I'm just proud of the team. So congratulations to the Discreet Labs team and the larger community that has helped us finish and ship some of these great pieces. The things that I'm the most excited about. So there are many things. I think the number one thing, of course, is this ability to have triple masking and the view key. So triple masking is our internal name for the masking of the address, the asset amount, and the asset type, triple mask, and then the view key. That entire package. So right now we have several pieces that released, but that entire package will be finalized and released and productized this year, which is super exciting. And I'm really excited to see what happens there. And then one of the other things that I just get a kick out of is being able to use zero knowledge proofs to put privacy around NFTs. So that's also coming out. I think that's going to be out this year. And it's just because I like NFTs, but I love for the NFT technology to expand beyond, PFPs. I think there's a lot of potential there.
That's awesome. Sam, I really appreciate your time. And I think a lot of people didn't know about Findora or didn't even know about how privacy could work with blockchain technology. So I really appreciate you coming and, sharing your knowledge and letting us know what you guys are working off. Anything you want to leave us with?
Well, I don't want to leave you guys at all, but I do have work to do today. Honestly, it's just my thanks. And I know this is pretty cliche and everyone mentions this, but Jess, number one, I really appreciate you creating this channel and this following. I think that's not an easy task, and you've done a great job doing it. And I really want to appreciate everybody who listens in to the Crypto and Coffee, the Twitter Spaces, and follows her on Twitter, of course. And just say thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You guys are a good group of people. I've listened to a lot of these spaces, and it's a nice little warm fuzzies to be able to actually be on the stage up here. So thank you very much.